might seem a little silly. To some it may seem funny. Remember, you're ready to have church.
Amen.
Amen.
You know, too often, we live in a society, and this is just a freebie outside of my sermon tonight, but we live in a society that feels like showing up is enough.
Amen.
That I don't need to go to work and do anything. I punch the clock, I expect a paycheck.
Amen.
Yep.
Unfortunately, in a marriage, I've been watching a lot of John Waller. He did a lot of the soundtrack for Fireproofing Marriage. And I will tell you, a lot of our marriages have went down the road of this storyline. We've just gotten so caught up with life that we've let life dictate our love.
Amen.
Amen. And we take each other for granted.
That's right.
You may not want to believe it or not, but it happens.
Yes, it
The
does.
special little things we used to do, we just don't have the time to do anymore. That's just the way it is. That's life. But unfortunately, we do that with God.
That's right.
Let me
Amen.
tell you, we cannot afford to waste one opportunity of walking through these doors and receiving something that can change our lives. My friends, we don't know what tomorrow may hold. You can drive down the road and be killed going home tonight. Don't tell me you're young, you can have a heart attack and die tonight.
That's right.
We're seeing this happening. You can be sleeping in your bed at night and get shot by a drive-by shooter. It's happening in Kokomo.
Right.
You may go to McDonald's tonight and get killed in a parking lot. It's happened. In Annapolis, we just had someone die in the lobby of a KFC.
Amen.
On purpose, you trying to scare us? My friends, if you've read the headlines of our news and you're not concerned, something's wrong.
Amen.
Because the Bible said, when I begin to see all of these things, what am I to do? Look down. Be discouraged. No. To look up, for my redemption draweth nigh. That means the church is getting ready to get called away. I'd like to bring you a word tonight. You know, we live in a society today with media as we have it. We are not granted the tolerance of mistakes. We are labeled. You know, my dad always taught me, he said, son, you can build up a lifetime to build a good name, but it'll only take one event to destroy that good name.
Amen.
In this life, I'm sad to tell you, that is so true.
That's right.
But in God, that's not true.
Amen.
Amen.
My title is this: one page does not a book make. One page does not a book make.
Right. Amen.
Our lives each day are pages recorded. I've often thought about, as a preacher's kid, I grew up with the pressure, my sister did also. You're the preacher's kid. You're supposed to be different than everybody else. You're supposed to be better than everybody else. You're supposed to know more than everybody else. They forgot I was a little boy just like everybody else.
Amen.
That's right.
Each of us will make mistakes. But it is up to us if that one page determines how the rest of our book will be written. For it will be written each and every day of our lives. But when it comes to the sum total, you know, Solomon said, let's hear the conclusion of the matter. We went through all the different stages of life. Let's see what is the summation of life. I want you to turn with me, please, to 2 Samuel chapter 7 and verse 1. And while you're turning and standing, you know, sadly, many will only remember David. When you are doing a pop quiz, first thing that pops in your head, if I would say David, you would say Uriah or Bathsheba. That's how many see him because of one event in his life.
That's right.
7:1 reads, and it came to pass when the king sat in his house, and the Lord had given him rest round about from all his enemies. You may be seated. I will tell you this, idle hands are never a good thing.
Amen.
If you are given time to think, your mind will go places it ought not go.
That's right.
Amen.
It will dwell upon things it ought not to think about. That's why we find out at Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving, and at Christmas for those that have lost loved ones or those that are alone in the world, having no family, no friend. Those are some of the most suicidal times because they're sitting around and they're seeing everybody else so happy and they are sitting around depressed.
That's right.
Does
Amen.
anybody get depressed in here?
Amen. Yes.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
If you do not let life get on you sometimes, I don't know how you do it.
That's right.
Amen.
I find life getting awful rough some days.
That's right.
And if given, you know, my grandson was on me Monday. He stopped by checking on Papa, and he was giving me a lecture. That when I start feeling better, he said, "Now I don't want you out of the house. I don't want you out in the woods. I don't want you doing anything. You just take it easy in your chair." I said, "Baby, you know how depressing that chair is?"
Yeah. Amen.
And I even told my wife, I fought her tooth and nail for 2 years buying this lazy boy chair. I did not. I loved my old. It was wore out. It was thin. It had springs coming through it. And I fought her tooth and nail. Baby, I ain't giving up my chair.
That's right.
I turned to her the other night and I said, "Baby, I'm so glad you bought me this new soft chair. I can't imagine spending the time I have the last few months in that old raggedy chair with that spring. I'd probably have to have surgery on my leg from the hole that spring made. But I'm tired of my chair. Because sitting there, hour after hour, and I'm sorry, I don't care what sitcom you like, you only watch so many reruns, especially when you're actually quoting their lines.
Yeah. Amen.
It's not. Your mind will begin to drift. Satan will begin to interfere. He'll begin to discourage and become despondent, thinking about things that are not relevant. You never give them a second thought. But because we're at ease, and I'm trying to bring you this for this. And it came to pass when the king sat in his house, he finally had rest. He wasn't thinking about the next battle. He wasn't thinking about who he was going to defeat next or who he had to defend himself against. But he just began to search his soul. See, this goes to the essence of man. When we have time to contemplate and really search out what is important to us. Verse 2. That the king said unto Nathan the prophet, "See now, I dwell in the house of cedar, but the ark of God dwelleth within curtains." He said, "Can you imagine this, Nathan? Look at me. I'm living in a mansion, and my God, my Creator, my everything is living in a box behind tents." See, this begins to reveal more than one page of a man's failure. It begins to reveal what David was really like. When given a time, he didn't think about a lot of other negative things. He didn't think about, "Well, God, why'd you let Saul chase me all over the place for 3 or 4 years? You called me. I didn't ask for this place."
Amen.
But what did he think about? He thought about how unfair it was that he had so much and God was living in a tent. Man, if that doesn't doesn't move you, I don't know what does.
That's right.
Amen.
See, it goes to worship. It's where I've been teaching you for so long that when we leave this place, who gets the best part of the deal? Do you leave feeling better about your worship, or does God leave this place feeling better about your worship?
Amen.
I guarantee you, in this night of contemplation, God walked away and said, wow, David really does love me. Not for just the throne, but David really loves me.
Amen.
He said, it's not right that I live in this, and God lives in that. And we turn to 2 Samuel 9:1. My friends, when we are hurt, see, this goes to the place of a man's life. Saul tried to kill him. He did everything he could to write off David from the history books. Why? He knew God was going to anoint him and make him king. How do we treat those that treat us ill?
Not very good.
You know, I had an uncle. Honestly, I never had much interaction with his uncle, but my elder brothers did. And I will tell you from their reports, he loved to torment my dad's 3 sons. He loved to give him Indian burns. He loved to play mercy with him, and he'd make him cry. I can only imagine my eldest brother before he died, when he was in his prime and my uncle was starting to get a little old. I can imagine my eldest brother, who's a very strong man, Paul, very, very stout man. I can imagine there was times that he probably wanted to say, well, come here, uncle. Let's play mercy again now. I'm not 12 anymore. I'm 40. And my arms are as big as your legs. Let's play mercy today.
Right.
See, that's our reaction to those that treat us unjustly.
Amen.
David had every right to seek out the kindred of Saul and eliminate them. Why? They were a threat to his reign.
Amen.
What did David do in his soul searching? David said, is there any yet that is left of the house of Saul? Not of the house of Jonathan, but of the house of Saul. He didn't care whose kids they were. That I may shew him kindness for Jonathan's sake. It wasn't just any one of Jonathan's grandkids. I want to treat them good. Any one of Saul's house. Can you imagine the heart seeking out your enemy to bless instead of your competitor to destroy?
Amen.
This goes to a book, not a page. When we read, and I want us to go down, please. I want to skip down. I got one more place I want to go, please. It's found in 1 Samuel 24:5. These are not hidden gems. You've read them before, heard them before. But I want you to try to take in the message that they're teaching us. And it came to pass afterwards that David's heart smote him because he cut off Saul's skirt. He did not harm him, which he easily could have.
Right.
Though many were encouraging him too, justifiably he could have.
That's right.
But his heart said, David, what are you doing? See, my friends, one of the problems is somewhere our heart must begin to warn us before we cross a line that we can't uncross.
Right.
See, it was bad enough that he cut his skirt. But his heart said, David, if you go any farther, you're going to be a king like every other king. You killed your successor.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
David said, I can't get the kingship that way. If God wants me to be king, then God's going to get me to be king. But I cannot usurp God.
That's right.
And his heart smote him. All these people cheered him on. Go, David, get him. I can't do it.
That's right.
Why? That's not me. Wait a minute. You killed Uriah. That was a page I'd love to forget. But it's written. But I don't have to let it be the story of my book.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I made a mistake. And you may say a series of mistakes. I really believe his first mistake, he wasn't where he should have been. And I believe if we would look at our lives, our really grave mistakes start with a one wrong step.
Right.
Instead of going left, we go right.
Amen.
Amen.
And the problem is we become like NASCAR. We don't know how to get out of the circle. We keep going left. We never get straightened up. We just keep going around in a circle. And while we do, we keep repeating that mistake. That one page becomes a chapter. And before long, it becomes the theme and sole message of our book. And before long, that's all they know us for.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to think about this man. I want to go down and do a little study on Solomon. It's found in 1 Kings 6 and 38. And in the 11th year, in the month of Bull, which is the 8th month, was the house finished throughout all the parts thereof, according to all the fashion of it. So he was 7 years in building it. See, now this is a little bit of a change of story from David. You all remember the prayer of Solomon, right? When the Lord comes to him in the middle of the night, Solomon, what wish would you want? I will give you whatever you want. What is your one wish? And his wish was that God would give him wisdom so that he could lead the people of God correctly. Wow, what a promising page. Isn't it? Man, that's an opening preface to a great book.
That's right.
Hey, I'm going to give you whatever you want. Oh, give me wisdom that I can be a better person. Not to be richer, not to live a long life, not to have all the enemies slain, but I want to be a better person. Wow, what a book.
That's right. Amen.
But see, then I see the very first act of Solomon. Some would say, wow, 7 years building the house of God. I would say, well, he spent 13 years building his own house.
That's right.
What does this begin to tell you? The page that says, I want to do anything for God and his kingdom. But when it comes to application,
That's right.
see, now please see where we're at. 7 years in building. I want you to go to 1 Chronicles 22 and 5. This is David's vision of the house of God. David said, Solomon, my son, is young and tender, and the house that is to be built for the Lord must be exceedingly magnificent. It's got to be the biggest monument there is. Why? Because it's the greatest God there is.
That's right. Amen.
Of fame and of glory throughout all the countries. He said, I want everybody to know that my God is the best.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, it would be challenging for me. I want to build God a house. And God says, sorry, I just can't lay you, David. I know it's in, but I'm going to lay you, son, and he's going to get all the credit for it. You know what David does the rest of his life? He doesn't sit back and enjoy his latter years. Do you know the end of life of David? He worked harder than at any other point in his life, preparing for the house of God that his son was going to get all the glory for. Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to build up a legacy for David, what was he trying? Why? Does anybody get it?
Yeah.
It wasn't about him.
That's right.
It was about God.
That's right.
The house of God was all about God.
That's right.
Now, Brother Ryan, go back to my other verse I just gave you about Solomon. 1 Kings 6:38. 7 years. Man, Brother Perks, that's a long time. That you'll read in my next passage. Let me get my notes. My next passage is found in 1 Kings 7:1. But Solomon was building his own house 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
I pray that you're seeing this picture clearly.
That's right. Question.
Amen.
Where was his heart at? David, all he could think about was building God's house, and it had to be exceedingly above and beyond any other palace.
Right.
But Solomon said, my house has got to be twice as good as God's house.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
That's right.
See, I've often heard people talk about Solomon and his prayer. Oh, wasn't that so amazing, Brother Cody? That here this young 19, 20-year-old boy, he knew he was going to be king. God come to him. Oh, wasn't that so gracious of Dolores that he could have had anything, but he accepted wisdom. Man, he loved God. There are a lot of people that love God for a page or two. But then I wonder if the crown and the throne and the palace didn't begin to usurp the rest of his book.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, I see the page that met God in the middle of the night turn to another page that said, okay guys, God's house is going to be this big, but my house is going to be this big. And I begin to see a heart that's beginning to shift the story of his book. David was all about God and his kingdom. See, when David even sinned and numbered the people, and God began to slay the people, David ran in the midst and said, don't do that, Lord, slay me, it was my fault. So see, I would have seen Solomon run in, kill them all, Lord, but don't touch me. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what Hezekiah said? Yep. When the sins were committed, your sons are going to be eunuch. Hezekiah said, well, at least it ain't going to happen my day. Mm-hmm. Sorry about your luck, Brother Randy, but it's not my day.
That's right.
But David said, take me. Don't blame them. They just did what I bid them to do. Blame me if you want right. But isn't that the heart that Abraham had? When the Lord was going to slay all the rebellious, stiff-necked people, what did Abraham say? Lord, blot my name out, but spare them.
That's right.
You may think that was a hollow gesture. You need to press God. Let me tell you, there's a lot of us that would want to believe we could be that teacher in Noblesville that stepped in front of several bullets. But it's easy to say when the gun is not firing.
That's right. Most definitely.
I can easily say, I'll take a bullet for my wife. Is everybody unarmed? I'm going to shoot you if you're a Christian. I would tell them I'm a Christian. You know what? When you're sitting in an Oregon classroom, the person right beside you puts a gun to their head and said, "Are you a Christian?" They say, "Yes." Pop! They come up to you, "Are you a Christian?"
Amen. Amen.
How many bullets you got in that gun? See, it's easy to make statements until we're confronted with the consequence. God, I love you more than anything. Oops, wait a minute. It's shifted now. This is more important. And see, there's a point in this. As we turn down, let's go to 2 Chronicles 6 and 7. Excuse me. 2 Chronicles 6 and 7 and 8. Now get this, please. Now it was in the heart of David my father. Well, I pray somebody's here to preach to.
Amen.
See, I had to deal with this type of a storyline. I grew up in this church. This was my dad's heartbeat, this building. And I confess, in the beginning, we struggled. I was a novice. And my one thought was, I can't let my dad down. This is what my dad built. I can't let it falter and be my fault.
That's right.
But you know what? Somewhere, for me to change, it had to change from my father's dream that got out here when we worshipped in the other building, that would be down here at midnight, and there was a line here. My dad walked this foundation for several years, claiming it before we ever built this church. He would come down here all different hours and walk the exact measurements of the church, claiming it for God.
That's right. That's right.
But see, somewhere it had a shift. It was in my dad's heart to build this church. Did it have to be in my heart to build this church?
Amen.
See, somewhere Solomon never transferred David's heart, because he said, that was in the heart of my father to build a house for the name of the Lord God of Israel. Verse 8. But the Lord said to my father, forasmuch as in thine heart to build a house for my name, thou didst well, that was in thine heart. Solomon got all the credit. David did all the work because it meant something to him. But Solomon got all the credit because even through history, it's Solomon's temple.
That's right.
Right? They call it today Solomon's temple.
That's right.
Wait a minute. All Solomon did was put the pieces together. David had all the workmen lined up. He had all the timber lined up. He had all the stone lined up. He had all the gold lined up. All the silver lined up. All the plans made. All Solomon had to do is write a check that David deposited.
That's right.
We're going to call it Solomon's temple. See, somewhere that heart didn't follow up from that first page. He began to take the throne because it's almost like Saul. Y'all remember what Samuel said about Saul? He said, Saul, what happened to you? When you were little in your eyes, look what God did to you. Kish was the smallest tribe. Benjamin, the smallest of the 12. Kish, the smallest of Benjamin. He said, what happened, Saul? When you were nobody, God made you king. Now look at you. You're forcing yourself to do things you know that are not right. Why? How I'm king. Ain't nobody gonna tell me what I can't do, Sister Donna. I'm king. And that was his downfall. It started a good page, but it fell apart. And I want to go to one last point. I'm going to keep you a little bit longer, but I haven't got to preach in a couple of weeks, so
That's right.
you're getting a little bit more.
Amen.
It's found 1 Kings, chapter 11 and 1. The King Solomon loved many strange women. My friends, the downfall of so many. You know, we talk about our leaders. We have seen it in our media. Politicians, celebrities. We hear the torrid stories of their lives. The sad part is they are the mirror of our society. When I read of studies, prominent, well-documented studies, that in our churches, 40% of unmarried people believe promiscuous behaviors is okay.
Wow.
When I see the divorce rate at 70 and 80% in the church, I see it as a mirror of our society.
Yes.
We are not immune to these things. Somehow, when we have a love, see, we are capable of multiple loves, but only one true love.
Amen.
When we take a wedding vow, it is, I give myself only. I place this as number one. The prodigal son, the story of the prodigal son was this. When he came back to his father, he said, Dad, I know I've wasted your money. I've sinned before you. But my sin was against God. When I offend my brother or sister, it is offense against them. But the sin is rebellion to God's law.
Amen.
Boy, it's got really quiet. But these are the facts, folks.
That's right.
Amen.
Then we wonder why our children are growing up with these ideologies. We are seeing it in our homes, and they adapt that as common lifestyles. You know, I heard one commentator say, well, divorce is on the way down. No, it's not. Marriage is on the way down.
That's what.
There's nobody left getting married, you get a divorce.
There you go. That's it. Amen.
When you have 75% of our homes made with people living together, you're not going to have an 80% divorce rate.
No, you're
Amen.
not.
So our children are growing up. Everybody else is doing it, it's okay. It's common practice. And you may say, Pastor, what's this got to do with what you're teaching? It goes to the very essence of our book. A page is a mistake. A chapter may be a bad mistake, but an entire book, that's who we are. It's not a page, but that is who we are. Where was his downfall? He loved many strange women. I thought to myself, he had 700 wives, 300 concubines, and you may not be aware of this, but a wife, most of his wives and the concubines, they were political alliances. When you read of all these different countries, these are all the countries he had defeated. They said, hey, let's send our prettiest girls to Solomon. Maybe he won't whoop us anymore.
That's right.
That's how they did it. If you study history, that's how they made peace.
Sure is.
They would marry family. Hey, we can't attack them. My daughter's in their palace. Don't shoot.
That's right.
But the problem is, God said you can't make peace with the enemy through compromise.
That's right.
Please tell me, and I'm going to get ready to wrap up in just a minute, but where do we appease Satan without committing sin?
No.
Where do we get to get him to back off of us without giving in unto him? And let me tell you, I want to go to my last part. I'll skip a little bit of this here. I want to go to my last part. It's found in Job. This is a verse that's always been tantalizing to me because it's so deep in so many ways. Excuse me one second.
Bless you, Lord. Bless you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Often I have paused it there. But this last line is just as important. But I will maintain my own ways before him.
That's right.
You must understand that for a week, his friends have been saying, surely you've done something wrong to make God mad.
That's right.
You have brought all of this onto you because you have sinned grievously. Read it if you don't believe me. The three friends, they said, now Job, has anybody ever had this happen? That didn't really make God mad.
Amen. That's right.
And I've got to tell you this. If you go back to Job chapter 1 and chapter 2, the sons of God were gathered together. Satan was in the midst, accusing the brethren. Have you ever wondered why people have simply singled out you to pick on when you didn't even do nothing to draw their ire?
Amen.
Have you ever thought this? That Satan is stirring up adversaries to accuse you, to discourage you, and to cause you to quit. Because I'll be quite frank with you. This lad, I was talking to my nephew before service, and he said, Dan, I said, when I heard all things happen to you, he said, I just had to call me. You know, I ain't never seen you like this. You're always running 200 miles an hour in 3 different directions.
Yep.
And I'll be honest, this last 6 months has been the hardest 6 months of my life. And I had found myself in the middle of the night saying, God, what did they do? I woke up crying, God, what they do? How they make you mad? What they do to get this?
Amen.
You call me to preach and you don't give me a voice? You call me to preach and I can't even think with some of the medication they give me. I can't even think.
Amen.
How am I going to preach? How am I going to do what you want when I got this going on? Has anybody else ever been there where you're going through some battles and the enemy's right there saying, well, it's all you. You brought it on yourself.
Amen. Amen.
It's because you made God so mad. He's really mad at you now.
Right. Amen.
See, God never accused Job one time. It was Job's friends that got him discouraged and almost blaming God when it wasn't God.
Right.
And that's what I love. He said, but I will And I